All right, today we are going to quickly review point of view. We did this a while ago. Just a refresher, we have first, second, and third person point of view. And I'm going to help you remember what those things are and what clues we look for to determine if a text is written in first, second, or third person. So let's go. Again, I'm going quickly because this is not the first time we've done this lesson, but if you are confused or need help, all you have to do is let me know and I will slow down for you. I will help walk you through it. I will help give you some more examples so that you understand. Okay. All right. Analyzing point of view. So what is point of view? It's the perspective or the voice from which the story is told. So remember this picture we looked and said, one guy thinks that that's a 6, one guy thinks it's a 9, and they're both right if you look at their perspective. So we have to honor other people's perspectives in our stories. There are 3 main points of view. The narrator is the one who's telling the story. It can be a character, but it doesn't have to be. The point of view can affect many other aspects of the story's plot and how appealing the story is to the reader. So we're going to figure out how and why. So we're going to learn to ask ourselves some questions to tell which point of view is being used. Here are your questions. Pay attention to the pronouns that the narrator uses. Does the narrator say I because they're part of the story? Or do they say he and she only because they're not part of the story? They're just on the outside looking in. So we have to remember we want to make sure that we're looking at the actual narration of the story, not the dialogue. Anything that's in quotation marks is conversation between characters. Those characters may use the words I, he, or she. That doesn't help us understand point of view. We have to look at the text that's not in the dialogue, okay? So anything outside of the quotation marks. So you need to ask yourself if the narrator is a character in the story. Is the narrator personally involved in the story? You can do that by asking, what does the narrator know? And what is the narrator sharing with you, the reader? Do you know other people's thoughts? Do you know one character's thoughts? Do you know that one character's thoughts because that character is telling you, or because someone from the outside knows that character's thoughts? There are lots of different ways to think about this. And then pay attention, maybe the narrator knows what all the characters are thinking and feeling. It's possible. First person point of view. The narrator uses pronouns such as I, me, and we, because the narrator is telling the story and the narrator is in the story. He is a character. He knows what's going on for himself and he's telling you the story. I'm trying to think in the books, The Unteachables or Restart, it's written in first person, but because Gorman, the author, changes characters with each chapter, we hear a lot of different points of view, but when Mr. Kermit is telling the story, he's talking about himself. He only knows what he's thinking. He doesn't know what the Unteachables are thinking. So that is first person. It's just a lot of different first persons. Um, when it's in first person point of view, the narrator can express his or her own feelings, but they don't know any of the other characters' thoughts or feelings because they don't know them. I can't read your thoughts. I can't tell other people what you're feeling. You would have to tell that. Stories from the perspective of first person often sound like a journal entry because you're only hearing about one person's experience. This point of view is commonly preferred because it's almost like you're having a conversation with the writer. He's telling you about his day. It's not always reliable, though. Think back to those 2 characters looking at that number on the ground. If I'm only hearing from one person, then I'm going to think that that person knows what they're talking about. If I hear from the other person, then I'm going to know, okay, 2 different perspectives give me 2 different stories here. So here's an example of first person narration. My name is Percy Jackson. I'm 12 years old. Until a few months ago, I was a boarding student at Yancey Academy, a private school for troubled kids in upstate New York. Am I a troubled kid? Yeah, you could say that. So this narrator is having a conversation with the reader, but he's using my name is Percy Jackson. I'm 12 years old. I was a boarding student. Am I a troubled kid? We know that the narrator is the character in the story telling us the story. Then we have third person point of view. And in third person point of view, you have a narrator who uses pronouns like he, she, it, they, them. Outside of the dialogue, the narrator is using those words to talk about the other characters, and they don't talk about I, and they don't talk about me, and they don't talk about my, because they're not involved. The narrator's not in the story. He's not a character. This is the most common point of view. So even though we often know like what one character is thinking or feeling, we haven't read a whole lot of stories this year um, that have a first person story all the way through. Okay, think about the Watsons Go to Birmingham. We knew mostly about Kenny, but Kenny didn't tell the story because the person telling the story talked about Kenny. If Kenny were telling the story, he would have said, I did this, right? Same thing for Holes. We were with Stanley the whole time. We knew about Stanley, but Stanley didn't tell the story because the story talked about Stanley, not about I or me. So this is the most common. Now, there are actually three different types of third person point of view, and here they are. You have the objective point of view here, where here's the narrator and here's the story, and here are all the characters in the story. And the narrator is looking in and he just sees what he sees. He sees what any person looking in would see. He hears what any person looking in would hear. It's objective. I don't know the thoughts or the feelings of these characters. I only know what they do and what they say. This is a limited third person point of view. This is what we have read most of, I believe, this year. So in the Watsons Go to Birmingham, we had Kenny and Byron and Joetta and mom and dad, and we had a narrator who told us everything that these people did and everything that these people said, but only what Kenny thought and only what Kenny felt. It was a limited third person. The omniscient or all-knowing third person knows the story. He knows everything that these characters say and do. He also knows everything that these characters think and feel. He knows everything about them. He knows all the things. Then we have second person point of view. This is the least um, popular as far as for your fiction novels that you all read. We don't get a lot of this. Second person point of view, the narrator uses the pronoun you and puts you, the reader, directly into the story. We often see second person point of view for directions. Teachers write second point of view all the time. My to-do list at the end of class that says you should finish your homework, you should check your email, it tells you what to do. That's second person point of view. So it's often used for instruction or direction. It's almost never used in literature. The only time I can think of that it's really well used for literature is choose your own adventure books, where the reader is brought into the story and gets to make the decision about what happens next. And I don't even know if we have any of those around here anymore. So in this example that we looked at a minute ago, we said this was first person. My name, I am, I was, am I. However, it uses a you. So in this case, the character Percy, he does talk to the reader sometimes, but he's telling a story, and the story is about him. It's not about you. You're just extra as the reader. So you have to be real careful. You need to make sure all of the writing is directed to you if it's in second person point of view. Okay? We've already done that. If you have any questions, let me know. This video can be watched again and again if you're stuck and if you need help looking for clues. If you just need help, let me know. If this is not clear to you, I'm happy to help you out further. Okay? All right. Let us carry on. You have a game to play and an assignment to finish.